Hello there, I'm Paul Richardson and welcome again to Striving for Successful Schools. This time it's program number 4 and we're talking about teaching and learning. Specifically, we're talking about leadership roles in improving teaching and learning. That's why this fits in with the strategic plan work that we did in previous programs. So, what do you do as a leader when you walk into either a new school or maybe you're new to the school and you want to identify where does this school stand in terms of teaching and learning? Well, when I was in a previous school about 2 or 3 years ago, I had a young man working as my vice principal, a primary trained young man, and he was very sharp, very smart, dynamic teacher. We both came with these ideas about what made good teaching and learning, and we were in a new start school, so we said, okay, give the teachers 2 weeks, which is what we do, let them settle down, get to know the students, get into the flow of teaching, and then what we'll do is we'll ask the teachers, give us a time, give us a class where you'd be happy for us to come and have a look at your teaching. Got time then to provide something that's really, a sort of a real pony show type lesson. Everything's happening, singing and dancing, and then we can find out where we're actually at with the teachers. So that's what we did. We divided the staff in half. I took half, he took half, and at the end of the week we came back together and said, okay, what have we seen? So we sort of looked at each other in that uncomfortable way. Did you see any evidence of lesson objectives? Nope. Okay. Did you see different teaching styles? Not really. Did you see any assessment for learning? No. And so the conversation continued. So it brings me round to where we had to begin at that point and where I've begun in the past. And that is, what is the vision for teaching and learning? And how do we communicate that? So that's a crucial thing for schools and for teachers. How can a teacher provide what the school wants in terms of teaching and learning without knowing what that is? So what we did, and what I would always do, is to be very clear, to do some initial induction at the beginning. Even if it's my first time in the school, but the teachers have been there for a while, then I can actually say to teachers, look, this is what I would hope to see in your lessons. Maybe that there's already some kind of vision being expressed for teaching and learning, but what I've found in many of the schools that I've been in the past is that there is an idea of these things are good in lessons, but it isn't clearly expressed, and people can't, if challenged, people can't respond by telling you what a good lesson is. So I'll normally hold some kind of induction or initial teaching and learning, professional development, where I can outline the things that I personally like to see. So I like to see things like, I like to see teachers begin the lesson outside the classroom. I like to see them greeting students, getting an orderly entrance into the lesson. I'll even say stupid things like, welcome to Mr. Paul's Magical Learning Kingdom. As they come through the door, get a smile on the face. We always say in the UK, there's a sort of 3-step rule. Get them in, get them on task, and get them out. And reality is pretty much like that. But we all know as teachers, don't we, that there's a far more complex equation when those students cross the threshold through the door into your lesson. That has to be 40 minutes of well-planned, well-executed, fully engaged learning. So I'll expect to see, and I'll communicate this to staff, I want to see a starter activity. I want to see students come in, sit down, be part of a routine, know what's coming next, and be engaged in it. And I want to see every one of them engaged. That needs to be short. I want to see some objectives. I want them to be smart. I want them to be definitely measurable, because I want students to know how they've changed over that 40-minute, 45-minute, or 50-minute period. I want them to know, I came in and I didn't know this, or I couldn't do that, but now I can. I want a number of tasks to take place during the lesson. I want to see some assessment of those tasks, some assessment for learning. It doesn't have to be written. It can be anything. Teacher judgment. We're professionals. So I expect to see that. I want to see some evidence of differentiation, some acknowledgement that we're not all in the same place. We don't all have the same learning styles or the same abilities. I want to see IT if I can. I'd like to see some critical thinking as part of my objectives, one of the tasks maybe. I want to see plenary sessions referring back to objectives. And I want to see reflections. Now, some people will tell me that's like a jigsaw. Oh, there you go, put all this together and you've got a great lesson. Well, it's not like that, and I wouldn't dream of telling anyone how to teach. But what I would say is, if you can put some of those things into a structure around a lesson, then you've got a reasonably good chance of engaging your students and having a good lesson and actually achieving some outcomes. So I'll communicate that. It's really important. Now, the next stage, once we have a snapshot of where we are in terms of our teaching and learning, then we're in a position to say, okay, this is what we think we're doing well. Okay, my data, because I will always collect data. I want to know how many lessons that I'm observing I would categorize as good to excellent. I want to know how many lessons I would characterize as being satisfactory, and how many I would say require improvement. And I'm looking for more than 80%, obviously, in the good to excellent. I'm looking for 95% of lessons to be satisfactory or better. And I'm praying and hoping that less than 5% of the lessons need to be improved. That's what I'm really wanting, but I'm not a dreamer, I'm a realist. And I know that you have to work to achieve that. So also the lessons that I observe will be broken down into the factors that I've mentioned earlier: starter activities, objectives, differentiation, ICT, critical thinking, etc. And I'll be working out which percentage of lessons fit which category. So I can see that, for example, maybe 90% of lessons have clear objectives, but only 55% have assessment for learning, which means there is some guidance for where I should perhaps be directing my professional development over the coming 12 months. So I've got my snapshot. Now as a leader, I need to feel that I'm implementing strategies which will help me to move us on from wherever we are, because we're never the finished article. We're never the complete teacher. We're never the complete school. It's not possible. So even if I've got 90% good to excellent lessons, how do I get better? Now, I think, as a senior leader, there are two key things that you can do as interventions here. You can implement a department review process as part of your quality assurance. So it can be like a mini Ofsted, mini inspection with set criteria, taking into account lesson observations, evidence of lesson plans, lesson resources, learning styles within the department, student voice, homework, etc. And you can involve in that process the middle leaders in the department and the teachers themselves. So you can actually say at the end, I would always write a report, and the report would say, thank you for having me in the department. The things I really like about your department are this. The things which I feel you could develop further are that. And one target I think that we could do together is this. And that's really the approach that I take with teachers too. Because I know what it feels like to be that young teacher, sitting in front of a senior leader, and the senior leader saying, that wasn't very good, was it, Paul? Not enough rigor, not enough challenge, 2 or 3 students off task, what are you going to do about it? It's never been my style. So I will always, in any situation, identify the positives, because that's that person's professional credibility here. After that, I like to involve people in saying, like I said at the beginning, I like people to say, look, I've seen this and I've seen that, but I haven't necessarily seen this part of your lesson. Could you explain to me either why you didn't do it that way, or maybe you did it in a way that I missed? And engage people in that dialogue. So I'd want to engage my teachers in department review. I'd want to engage my middle leaders in this department review, and I would want us to feel like we're in it as a team. It's not something I'm doing to them, it's something that we're doing together. And in this way, I would hope to set targets which would start to address some of the areas that I've identified as development areas for teaching and learning. The other way is through an effective appraisal policy and process. Now, I've always followed the policy of setting 3 targets with a teacher, not to the teacher. So I'll engage in a dialogue with them about a target for student progress, a target for teaching and learning, and a target for professional development. And we'll have a review cycle over the course of a year, which will involve observations and evidence from lessons, lesson planning, resources, maybe videos, etc. And we can talk about whether the target's been achieved or not. And for me, I don't care if the target has actually not been achieved. What I care about is the process of the dialogue of a teacher reflecting themselves and with me about their professional progress. That's the important thing. It's not important to reach the goal. The important thing is the journey. If you can do both, then it's brilliant and you can move on and set the next target. So these are 2 key things that you can do as a senior leader. There are others, of course. As I say, we've already talked about data management, and we've talked about department review, and we've talked about appraisal. We've mentioned professional development. Obviously, and I will talk about professional development next week, but professional development, if it's targeted to your development areas of teaching and learning, then in the following year, you would really hope to see that some of those professional development sessions have resulted in an improvement in the percentage of lessons with, for example, assessment for learning or student reflections in. If they haven't, then you have to question the quality either of the data that you're collecting or the quality of your professional development in terms of raising the quality of teaching and learning. So that's realistically it in terms of leadership. You can go obviously much deeper than that. And if anybody would like to go much deeper than that and to talk in far more detail about interventions and tracking teaching and learning, then you can contact me either here on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Striving for Successful Schools, and also the website Striving for Successful Schools. Thank you again for joining me. I've enjoyed talking, as always, and I look forward to talking again about professional development in a future program. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.